In this video I'm going to demonstrate how you might mark and cut out a mitred frame. In second year, at the beginning of second year, we have a project which is a mirror stand, and we have to miter around a frame for the mirror to be incorporated into it. You can see I'm using a miter box here with a tenon saw, and I've got a length of material which I'm going to use to miter around the edges there. You can see I've cut one miter, I'm offering it up to the edge of the piece, and it's a square frame that we're actually doing here, and I'm penciling around the opposite side of that, and I've flipped the piece over and I'm cutting it again in the miter box, and I'll offer it back up again. The little piece of sanding that I'm doing there is because the edges are a little frayed, because the sacrificial piece at the bottom of the miter box is a little bit worn. So I offer up a corner and keeping those in place and flush the edges, which means even on the edge. I just offer it back into the miter box. I could take it from either angle, but I'm going with the one that I feel is most comfortable for myself. And if you need, you can always put a pencil mark on the piece to show the direction that it needs to go in the saw, so you don't end up cutting both of them in the same direction. And you can see I've marked or labelled a reference on each of the pieces as I'm nailing them down, so A goes with A and B goes with B. And again, making sure that they're flush. There's a good tight joint in there, and I'm keeping a spacing from the corners. I'm not too tight to the corners. And the next piece, it always leaves me with another cut it's ready to be offered up, and again I've penciled the underside of the piece, and I can offer it up again into the miter box and make my cut. So what you see here now, I've turned the sacrificial piece at the bottom of the miter box around so as it should provide me with a slightly cleaner or better cut. And again, when I'm using the sandpaper, I'm not sanding the edge of the miter, I'm only taking away little frays. There's nothing being taken off really, only the little frays of wood that are at the edge of it. So offering it up, a good tight joint, flush onto the edge with the point, and you can see I have a little piece left which has been measured kind of fairly neat on size, so there's not a lot of waste. I'm going to cut a fresh edge on this one here to offer it up, and you can see I've got the two pieces taken out even though I have the other two tacked in, and I pencil the opposite side, and you can see I'm putting on that little pencil mark to show me the direction that I need to cut in case it gets mixed up between there and the miter box. And I'll offer these two pieces back up to see how they're fitting. Now, if I felt that one of them was a little bit long, I'm going to demonstrate here using the chisel how you may pare a little bit off if it was slightly off angle or whatever. But you can see I'm off pinning one piece in, and the last piece here, I'm going to take that out and demonstrate it. I tend to like to nail the furthest away from the joint corner first, so that when I'm offering it in, I can push in on the piece. And you can see here, I turn the piece around, and I'm using the chisel edge to just clean a little bit off, and as you can see there's nothing come off that there as such. It wouldn't be something that I would be advocating really. It's better to try and get the cut clean off the miter box if you possibly can, but if you have to, this would be the way that you would clean that off, especially because you'd be only looking at taking a half a millimeter or whatever off. So I'm not sending the pins home because the pins have to actually retract it after the glue is set. If you had a sharp enough pin, you could actually put it into the piece, which would be fair enough. I'm using the pincers and rolling the pins back a little bit so as I'll be able to take them back out easily, and they can be offered back in, and the pins will actually center where they're actually meant to be going on each of the pieces. As you can see, the nails that I'm using, or the panel pins, are just that a little bit long, so I'm not going to be able to drive them home and punch them and fill them. I'm using a template for the mirror that's going to sit in there, and the framing piece is actually thick enough that it covers over the edges of that there. So now you see that I'm removing each of these pieces. There's reference letters on each of these pieces before the glue goes onto these. Ideally, I suppose, if you had a frame going around the outside edge and then you had a bigger miter again on the outside of that, covering over the front panel of the glass, so there will be no edge seen. But for this particular project, this works fine, and it's the sort of thing that can be applied to other projects where you have a little bit of framing to do with a miter, and it's quite handy to kind of follow that procedure. As you can see, the glue that is excess glue goes over, is wiped off with the wet cloth, and checking again with the template before driving the hole that in a little bit more secure and putting my name on the piece.